I think the key for any kind of, strong leadership for me is empathy and trust. I don't believe in, driving people to the very edge and to the very brink of cracking the whip and getting everything done. Doesn't matter how much of a strong, from the front leader I am, because I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to work 12, 18 hours a day. So why should I expect my team to? But if it comes to it, if you trust your team and you treat them with empathy, they will work those hours when they need to. And they will do so with a smile on their face because they feel like they're contributing to something and they're being taken seriously, and they know it will be recognized as well.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders in Tech. I am your host, David Mansilla. Today we have with us Thom Langford. Thom, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I have this reputation that I always misspell and mispronunciate last names. So Thom, can you please give me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
My name is Thom Langford. I am currently the EMEA CTO for Rapid7, and I often describe myself as a twice recovering CISO.
Well, twice recovering CISO. Expand on that, please.
Well, I've been a CISO a couple of times. Once, my first CISO role was with Publicis Groupe, which is a global advertising, marketing, digital marketing, communications company. Owns such brands as Leo Burnett, Saatchi & Saatchi, Publicis Sapient, etc. I was a CISO there for 4 years, and then more recently, up until right about this time last year, actually, in fact, just a little bit earlier last year, I was CISO at a company called Velonetic, which ran the digital platform for the London insurance markets.
Wonderful. So are you based in England?
Yes, in the UK, but I live out in Wiltshire, which is due west of London, not about half an hour from Wales, if anybody knows their geography.
Wonderful. And the current company you work for, what do you guys do?
So Rapid7 is a cybersecurity vendor. We made our name primarily in the vulnerability management, but now we've expanded, as you can imagine. So vulnerability management, SOC, SIEM, managed services, threat intelligence, a wide range of cybersecurity managed and in-house services, hosted either internally or on the cloud.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
That is amazing. Cybersecurity is so important nowadays, and it seems that the more technology we create, like AI, the more dangerous everything becomes instead of being more safe, right?
Well, I mean, I like to think that, the world has always been a dangerous place one way or the other. And I know cybersecurity is kind of a new-ish thing, 20, 30 years, or, for it to be, recognized in the form that it is today. But it's there's always something. I mean, as an industry, we're known for having flavors of the year. 1 year it was it was one thing. Another year it was something else. It's the last few years has been just AI for obvious reasons. It's pretty much dominated thinking, but there's always something new out there. That being said, it's very difficult. Everybody often says you just have to get the basics right to protect yourself. The basics are really difficult. There's a reason why the basics aren't being done all the time. It's because it's really difficult to make fundamental business and cultural changes in in any size organization, but specifically large organizations. fundamental business practices that need to change, and attitudes and cultures, etc., and behaviors, that it's very difficult to make those changes.
Well, especially when everything has vulnerability, right? Like, we are a small business if you compare it on sizes like your company. We have everything very well down regulated. We have a software consulting firm, so we create software, custom software solutions for our clients. And even us, despite that everything is on the cloud, despite that we have a cybersecurity team completely dedicated to making sure we not only write safe software, but we also are protected as a business. There happens to be a NAS drive connected to one of the servers that were being sunset, but
yeah.
One of the IT guys forgot to patch that NAS drive, and sure enough, we got hacked. That was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there's a couple of things there. One is complexity. Often larger organizations are hugely complex, and they're built that, the business is often demanding that complexity because they're demanding flexibility. We need things now. Because security is nothing if not a whole story of compromises. Because any CISO out there, any security professional out there could make their organization the most secure in the world. That's easy. That business would go out of business very quickly because it would stop them from innovating and from being agile and from doing the work and delivering to clients and things like that.
Right.
So everything is a compromise. So when you throw in compromise with complexity, with human behavior, with active criminals, and I don't like to call them cyber criminals because that makes them sound a little bit sort of cool and sexy, and they're not. They are just plain criminals.
Oh, terrorists.
Yeah, in some cases, or human traffickers, or selling of hugely harmful and illegal drugs, etc. So yeah, they're just criminals. But actively having criminals trying to attack and find any single way into your environment, something's going to happen, and it's as much about how you react and respond to those attacks as stopping them in the first place.
That's amazing, Thom. Now, based on what you just told me, I'm curious now about your career, because you ended up in cybersecurity, but you have different life paths in your bringing up to this position. Yeah. So let's go back in time, Thom. I want to know what was in your mind when you were just finishing high school. What did you do what did you want to do with your life?
Oh my goodness. So 18, I wasn't entirely sure, to be honest. I think I took a year off. I traveled around the world. Or rather, I worked for 6 months as a waiter, as a room service supervisor and waiter in a London 5-star hotel up in Park Lane, and then used that money to travel around the world for 7 or 8 months before I went to university. My university degree was in industrial relations, personnel management with computing. So even then, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was always a lover of technology. I'd always loved, IT of any description. And while I was at university, I bought my first PC, a 486DX, 33 megahertz for those that remember, with a massive 4 megabytes of RAM and a 20 megabyte hard drive. I mean, come on, I was in the big leagues.
But Thom, do you remember that we couldn't hit the 1 megabyte mark on RAM?
Yeah.
But the technology was stuck and it couldn't get past the 1 meg, right? I think it was
640K. It was 640K. I mean, right? It was Bill Gates who famously said, "Who would need more than 640K of memory? Who's ever going to need that?" I got very into it, and as a result of that, I took my first job at a company that ran VAX VMS systems, DEC VAX, if you remember those as well. So
I had a job programming VAX systems.
Yeah,
that was my first professional development job.
And that was when I realized I didn't like coding. There was no way I liked coding. I did a little bit of script work and stuff like that in coding, but I was changing magnetic reel-to-reel tapes, on a nightly basis. It was that old school. And then I just moved from one sort of IT role to another, very much trial by fire, very much bluffing my way in the interviews and trying to be, confident and all that sort of thing, and learning as we went. I mean,
Right.
I literally I had to install an internet leased line. It was one of the very first, lease lines, 64K. It was huge. The bandwidth was amazing, 64K. And for an
I remember
office,
my first modem was 2200, right?
yeah, exactly. But this was a loose line. It was a fixed point, and I did not know TCP/IP. Nobody had taught me TCP/IP. I had to,
Right.
and the internet was not what it was today, right? So I was buying books and trying to work this out, and eventually got sent on a course, and
I guess it was mid-90s.
yes, yeah, mid-90s, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Got into Windows, and NT, specifically NT 3.5.
Right.
Obviously I was on Windows and Windows for Workgroups up till then. Novell NetWare I was pretty good at, and integrating the two. We were running initially we were running 10 base what was it, 10 base 2, was it 10 base 2, the Ethernet cable,
And base 2, yeah.
and then with 10 base 5, the thicknet cable, which you needed a vampire tap to plug onto to go up. I mean, it was fantastic. Those are the days, right? And then Cat 5 and anyway, all of that. And then I sort of gradually moved up, and then the company was acquired by one of the Coopers and Lybrand at the time, and then that merged with PwC, etc. And I turned into an IT consultant, and I was building things and building centers. And it kind of went from there. And so I not only became an IT person, but I became an IT and sort of general projects person. I could refit an office, and everything from the networking up to the wet trades and things like that, And so I kind of just, honestly, I fell from one role to another. I literally tripped and fell from one role to another, to another, to another. And just when I thought I'd hit this is it, I'm not going to get anywhere, this is my life, I'm not going to rise anymore, etc. I saw that there was a gap in the company I was working for, a company called Sapient, around business continuity. And I spoke to our chief operating officer and said, I think there's a gap, we might need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And he had recently had his identity stolen, and was being given. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. This is back in 2008, very early 2008. He'd had his identity stolen, and so he was concerned about how much data we as a company had on individuals, etc. And he said, yes, you're right, we've got a BCP problem and a data problem and a privacy problem and an incident response problem. Go and set up a team. And by the way, you've got no budget, and here's half a person that you can use.
And you got to set up a team.
and that was it. Yeah, go set up a team, and that was it. And then basically 6 years later, when Sapient was acquired by Publicis, I was asked to step into the CISO role of Publicis Groupe. And it was, we'd grown the team. The team was like 15, nearly 20 people at that point. And then I'd take them over and grow the team. When I left in 2018, we were 75 odd people. We'd made some really fundamental changes. So yeah, my journey into my first CISO role was unintended, I guess you could say. It was literally like,
you were not looking for the opportunity. The opportunity found you.
Yeah. The opportunity found me, and I saw a small part of it, and then somebody else said, no, there's a much bigger part of it, and then off we went. So one could say, given that CISO stands for career is so over, one could say that I was very, very fortunate,
Yeah.
But maybe I was lucky or unlucky. I'm not entirely sure.
Thom, I'm a man of faith, so I got back to my faith about 3 years ago, and I decided to read the Bible, which I never read before. And on Psalm 139, it says that God made a book about your life, and every single day of your life is written there. But it's up to you whether you want to follow it or not. And I think in your case, the opportunities kept coming because that was your destiny, and you kept saying yes, because you could have said no, right? You could have said, no, I'm not interested in this, right?
But I mean, my opinion's slightly different. I like to think that I'm writing the book, but I'm writing it as it's happening, not making it happen. So
which is beautiful, because in my case, right? In my case, I was forcing it.
Yeah.
So if you look at my career, my path, everything was a struggle. I was fighting it. I wanted to become a supervisor as soon as possible. I wanted to then become a manager. I wanted to become a director, a VP, and I was forcing my way up, and it was an uphill battle. So it's beautiful when I find somebody like you with the opportunity just showed up and said, would you like to do this? I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Right.
but what was interesting though was I said that I felt like I'd reached the top of my IT career when the security thing happened. Within about a month or so of moving into this new role and looking at what I had to do, and I actually found like I'd found my tribe of people. I felt like I'd found my place. And before then, I thought, oh, I need to do X, Y, Z if I want to be a CIO, and that's not going to happen because I'm not any good at that and I can't do that. Got into security, it's like, I know where I am. I know what I've got to do. I found my people. I can talk to these people. I can, I understand what my purpose in life, in business life is. And that gave me a lot of confidence to just get on with it and do things.
And focus on that.
Yeah,
but imagine that. How is life that everything came because your boss identity was stolen?
I know, right? I know.
How that impacted your whole career.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I said that was at the beginning of 2008. I had spent all of 2007 looking to get another job, looking to find another job. Could not do it. Had plenty of interviews. Could not land something at all. And I think it was partly just desperation. They could smell the desperation on me, and partly because I just wasn't that interested in the jobs that I was applying for. Yeah.
And 2007 was a booming year. I mean, that was the year that everybody could change jobs every other week if they wanted to.
Exactly. And then 2008 was not a booming year.
No, it was horrible.
And yet I was able to start a new role, and I never once felt concerned about that. I just got cracking on with it. It made me feel, like I said, it made me feel like I'd found my tribe and I'd found my, the thing that I've always wanted to do. And although I've kind of drifted through slightly different roles in cybersecurity, I'm definitely in the place I need to be and want to be.
And was that opportunity the first time you were able to lead other people?
No, I already did lead multiple teams and across multiple geographies as well. So I was in a global management role beforehand, with teams from all the way from the West Coast of the USA through to India. So, and I was traveling a bit, etc. But I'd hit the glass ceiling. That was the problem. There was nowhere for me to go in this company.
To grow.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't enjoying the work either. That was the thing. I wasn't enjoying it. Whereas when I got this role and I was able to build a team and move forward, I just relished it. And I just really embraced that ability to find people who were passionate about security. That doesn't matter what they had on pieces of paper, just passionate about security, and help them grow into their roles was just wonderful. And I've made lifelong friends as a result of it.
That's beautiful. And you were right in the process of that industry building up, right? Because before it was only McAfee, and you had your antiviruses.
Oh yeah,
right? Norton antivirus and McAfee, and that was cybersecurity before.
Kind of. I mean, there was a lot more to it there. I mean, there was a lot more to it, but yeah, it certainly felt like simpler times. There's no doubt about it. But the challenges were still the same. The attackers were still doing the same things. They were still using the same tricks and the same mechanisms to get in and to, phishing was still a thing back then. It wasn't as common, and it was slightly easier to spot to a certain extent, but it was still there and it was still going on. One of the early ones I remember was the domain squatting, or the registering of domains using Cyrillic characters for one character of the domain name, so it looks identical to the naked eye. It looks identical to the real thing. That was a major problem, and obviously we've got a lot more defenses on that now, that it's less likely to happen. Certificates, etc., all sorts of mechanisms. But I think it was mature enough. It wasn't the Wild West, I think, of the the late 90s and the big firewall booms and all that sort of stuff. But it also wasn't as mature as it was today. So security was not as taken as seriously as it was today, and I still don't think it's taken seriously enough today either. But and even the role of a CISO was not clear back then either. And I think seeing that change over time has been absolutely fascinating. And I've done plenty of public speaking on things like that, because that was another thing that security gave me, was the ability to find my voice and use it and go out to conferences and go out to webinars and forums and small gatherings of InfoSec people and talk and give opinions and interact with people. And that has been another huge benefit for me in that it's allowed me to ingest and synthesize and create my own approach to the challenges that we face, and be able to put them out publicly and have them sort of have that feedback on them as well. So it's as an industry, it's been very good to me.
And Thom, and that's the definition of a flourishing career executed by a successful human being. You look very happy.
I mean, I wasn't always happy, I have to say. Interested in, and without wishing to sort of hijack the direction we're going in, it was around about 2017 that I had a major personal crisis, mental health crisis, and I had to take a month off work. I completely I stopped drinking. I was an alcoholic at that point, so much traveling, so much, all that sort of stuff. I stopped drinking then, and I still don't drink now, and I've never seen the problem, the need to go back to it. And that was a thing that I actually wrote about. I think it was around about 2019, early 2019. I wrote about it and published it on my blog. And the response was huge, and in a positive way, hugely positive, that, God, I'm so, it's so good that you talked about it. That happened to me, or what happened to a work colleague, or it happened to someone I know, my family member. No one's talking about this. We have to do more about it. And whilst it was, there was talk about it, I wasn't the first, but it certainly resonated with me. And I went to that, I think it was that March, about a month after I published it, the blog post. I went to the RSA conference in San Francisco, massive cybersecurity conference, about 40,000 people there. And every day, virtually every hour, people were seeing me and coming up to me, shake my hand and say, thank you. That was a really important piece of writing. That was a really good thing to do. I was blown away by how much it resonated with people. And so yeah, yes, now I'm very happy. Don't get me wrong, but it's a process, right? And everybody has these challenges, and depression and dark suicidal thoughts, etc., can happen to even ostensibly successful, happy people. In fact, oftentimes nobody ever sees it coming, and nobody did, including myself. So it was, it's been I hate to use the word, but it's been a journey.
For sure. And the thing is, it's when you start doing something and you don't even realize that it's against you, like drinking alcohol because you're traveling and you're going to conferences.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where, because it happened to me too, right? I was borderline an alcoholic until I realized that I was drinking a bottle of wine a day by myself. And all I was doing was self-medicating myself. I was into so much stress for the traveling and trying to grow the business and grow my career that I started, because I read an article that said a cup of wine a day is actually good for you.
So a glass of wine is good for you. A bottle is amazing for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And before I knew, when I went to my doctor, because I had a heart attack.
Wow.
Right. I had an angina. It wasn't like a full heart attack, but I had an angina big enough so that they sent me to the hospital to do all these exams. And my doctor told me, she became my psychologist. She said, you're abusing alcohol because it's the only way you are alive, because of the stress of your career.
Yeah.
So you have to choose this. I'll give you opioids and you stop drinking alcohol, but then you're addicted to these pills. or you change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
I was only 40 years old. I looked terrible. I was 40 pounds overweight. So I decided to change. That was my checkpoint. It's like, okay, God, I need to fix this.
I think that's exactly it. And I think, you have to change your lifestyle, because certainly for security professionals, the phrase I used to use is, we deal in secrets every day. We're very good about not talking about things, and we're measured on failure. So we're only noticed when it all goes wrong.
Yeah, it's true, right?
And so the combination of keeping secrets and measured on failure is a very heady mix that really makes it a little bit of a hidden problem. And that's not to say, my goodness, there are some very stressful jobs out there. Being a firefighter or being, a nurse or whatever. I'm not trying to suggest that, us poor CISOs get it much more difficult than that. But it's, we're not the only ones to have this problem. But in cybersecurity, it's our problem, and we need to do something about it and recognize it. And I met some fantastic people who are continuing this onwards now. There's a few folks I'm working with as much as I can anyway in the UK who are setting up foundations for this, and to do actual studies into it, and to provide real clinical care for folks that are suffering from this sort of thing. So I think it's something that we absolutely need to recognize and talk about and address, but also recognize, hey, we're not exactly brain surgeons here, or we're not. It's rare in our line of work, although it is changing. It's rare in our line of work that somebody dies because we make a wrong decision.
Right.
Yes, there are edge cases. Don't get me wrong, but vast majority of people like me, if it goes wrong, it's probably just a little bit of money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah. Somebody told me once, if you can write a check to fix it, it's not a problem.
I think that's so true. That is so true. It's not really a problem. Yeah, it's something you want to avoid. Maybe you might not want to do it, right. But it's a real problem. Is I think we conflate things. I think we call it like first world problems, right? I think that's the approach we often say. Oh, it's such a first world problem. If we recognize that, actually the stress comes off a bit, and that's something I found was it's kind of like. My turn of phrase was, "Oh, what's the worst that could happen?" Yeah. Okay, we lose this data. Okay, let's make sure it doesn't happen. But that is the worst that can happen, and we'll be fine, and life will go on.
Exactly, and that's how you have to approach life. You have to have a positive outcome at everything, because you always have a choice. No matter what happens in life. You can look at it the negative way or the positive way. And it's up to you. You have to be renewing your mind and thinking about the things that are worth thinking about.
Yeah.
And you're always going to have problems. If you didn't have a problem, you wouldn't have a job. Because your job is to solve a problem, isn't it?
Well, how often do we hear ourselves say, God, if it wasn't for our customers, I'd be able to do my job properly. That's right. If it wasn't for the customers, you wouldn't have a job. God, I'd be able to get my job done if I could just get rid of all these vulnerabilities. Well, that's kind of the job, is to get rid of all of I just have to change these people's behaviors, and then it would be fine. Well, that's the job. Get on with the job,
Right.
And I think it's so easy to lose sight of that. As human beings, we just get very caught up in our day and our daily lives.
You know what this says? Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable. If there's any of these things are excellent, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I just read your Philippians 4:8 from the Bible. So that I have it as a sticker because I forget. And then, for example, I came back to Canada. I was on I do sunburning now because I'm able to actually live the winter for finally.
Yeah.
So I come back and it's 90 degrees and my air conditioning breaks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then I go to my garage and there is so much heat. and so much humidity that the walls of my garage started to sweat so much that there is puddles of water on the stairs.
Yeah.
So I freak out. I call the maintenance people, and they come and tell me, no worries, it's just condensation. And by the way, because of the covering is epoxy, it's waterproof.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, thank God.
It's
The
designed
conditioning, I called the guy, they fixed it. So it's like, what are you going to focus on? The problem is, this looks like tiny things, but one tiny thing goes on top of another one, and before you know, your whole mind is negative, and you go into depression.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
You have to take care of the little things, right?
All of that, and find some good hobbies. Anything that just allows you to switch off, to reset your brain, etc. And also stop looking at your damn phone.
Yes. That's true.
Although the other one I was going to mention as well, actually, and a friend of mine has just taken a job in quite a senior job, and my advice to her, because she said, I'm so busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing the other, etc., etc. My advice to her was, you are allowed to decline meetings.
Yeah.
You can say no to a meeting, or you can say, I'll do it next week. Yeah. It's very, very rare that there is a problem that needs to be dealt with right now or in the next 24 hours, because otherwise you will always just be in meetings. So you can say no to them. And if it's important, they'll let you know, and then you can make another decision as to whether you take it or not. But you can say no. It's so difficult. Hitting a decline button on a meeting, hardly anybody does that.
Yeah. You think it's impolite. The problem is that that leads you to, that's the road to a burnout. And once you're burnt out, you have the risk to get depressed. And once you're depressed, you lose your job for a month.
Well, you lose perspective.
Yeah.
You lose perspective. Everything becomes an emergency.
You know what triggered my angina, the heart attack that I had? Back then there was the Blackberries, and it had push notification, and that thing was going beep, beep all the time. The pings of the incoming messages, and it was February, there was a crash in the highway, and I was stopped for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I saw an orange helicopter carrying out dead people, and the phone wouldn't stop ringing because I was late. And boom, that made it happen. But that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Because I was saying yes to every meeting, because everything mattered, because I couldn't say, no to some things. Like when you say yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else.
Yeah.
Because you only have 24 hours in the day.
Exactly. And actually, you only have 8 hours at work. Let's face it. Let's try and stick to 8 hours. If we can do 8 hours a day, and I know it's not always possible, I know it, but that's the target. That's not the minimum. That should be the target.
Yeah.
Sometimes do a little bit more. On occasion, do a little bit less, but the target should be 8 hours.
That's for sure.
But
Tom, what do you think is your secret to be a successful leader? What's the most impactful thing that you can tell me?
Empathy. Always treat teams, always treat people with empathy. Empathy and trust. People, if you've done your recruitment right, if your team has been set up right, you can trust your people to do the right thing, and they can trust you to have their backs. And with the empathy side of things, it's understanding where they're coming from, why they've made certain decisions, and what they need from you to help support that decision. Now, you should publicly support a bad decision if it was made, by them, and then privately work through how that decision was suboptimal, how actually it could have been better, and what you'd expect next time. But if you have to give teams the autonomy to do the work they need to do, and trust them to do it, and work with them when they don't get it right, because in the same way you don't always get it right. So I think the key for any kind of strong leadership for me is that empathy and trust. I don't believe in driving people to the very edge and to the very brink of cracking the whip and getting everything done. Doesn't matter how much of a strong from the front leader I am, because I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to work 12, 18 hours a day. So why should I expect my team to? But if it comes to it, if you trust your team and you treat them with empathy, they will work those hours when they need to. And they will do so with a smile on their face because they feel like they're contributing to something and they're being taken seriously, and they know it will be recognized as well.
On a special occasion, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we all go, especially in IT, we all go through those crunching times.
Sometimes there's an incident or something like that. Yeah, we're going to have to work horrible hours for 3 weeks. I'm damn well going to make sure that even if the company I'm in doesn't have a paid overtime or anything like that, I'm damn well going to make sure they get informal time off in lieu. You worked the last 3 weeks for 18 hours a day, but between us, we'll all take the next 5 days off, or take 5 extra days off. Just class it as a working day, but just go home. Just take the time out, because that's how you need to treat people. That, and the other thing I would always say is always beg forgiveness, never permission.
Expand on that. That's interesting.
If you're confident in what you got to do, just do it.
Just do it. Yes.
Yeah. And that's probably why I'm meeting HR tomorrow. But
But sometimes you don't move ahead if you don't take this the right decision.
You've got to take risks. You have to take risks. And it's knowing when to take that risk and when to beg forgiveness and not permission. That's, you can't just always just do it, because obviously you're going to end up getting fired. But sometimes, and it sounds a little bit like the means justifies the end, or the end justifies the means. Sorry, but I also think that sometimes you've just got to take the risk. You've just got to get things done, because that's what's expected of you as a leader, to get something done.
Yeah. No, and you have to also have to take the risk, and watch was the benefits versus doing it or not doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I do always. Life is a risk. I mean, when you're going to take a shower, people die taking a shower.
Yeah.
They sleep and they knock their head and they die.
Absolutely.
It happens all the time. Right?
Accidents happen, things like that happen. Yeah, absolutely. But what you can do is, just in the time, if you can justify it to yourself, and in a way that's not going to be justifying it to a court judge or something like that. I mean, don't do anything illegal, is what I'm not suggesting.
No,
that any stretch. Don't try this at home, kids. But yes, sometimes you've just got to take that risk. You've just got to say, oh, look, I'm doing this. I'm not going to ask, because they'll say no. So I will, say I'm sorry later on, but hey, look what we've achieved.
Right. Yeah, so that's actually bending the rules within a corporate environment. That's what we're talking about.
Not not doing something illegal. No, absolutely.
Or stop paying your taxes or something. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could, but what is it? Mess around and find out. I think there's another phrase they use, but it's
yes.
Farfo, isn't it?
Thom, you put something very specific that it was hard for me to understand until I did, I became a better leader. You said, do the correction in private, never correct people in public.
Oh God, yeah,
absolutely. That damages their personality and damages their reputation, right?
It bruises their ego, and I mean ego in the traditional sense, not the big ego type.
Right.
Thing. It bruises them. It hurts them.
Right.
You might as well slap them in the face or punch them in the stomach. It hurts them.
Right.
But if you have a rational conversation around, right, now this is over, can we talk about this? Because actually, I think this was the wrong decision you made. Here's why I think it's the wrong decision. It's not that I don't trust you anymore, but I want you to think about how we could have done this better between us. But you have to back them up all the way. And I did that. I remember once, and this really struck home for me. There was a particular project. It was quite early in my security day, and I had a small team of them, 3 or 4 people, and we were trying to achieve something. It's too much to go into right now. Trying to achieve something, and we did it. We missed the mark entirely, and we got pulled up by the same COO who gave me the role in the first place, and he said, this is appalling. This is a disaster. You guys have completely screwed this up. And I remember saying, it's not the team. The team did exactly what I asked them to do. This is on me. And then, afterwards, one of the guys from the team said, when you said that, I tell you what, we felt like a team working for you, because you very clearly stood up for us in front of the big boss, as it were. And that really struck with me. That was probably the first time that I had to do something like that. And that made me realize quite how important it was to fly that, provide that air cover for your team, to make sure that they know that they can, if they're doing what you've asked them to do, or if they're doing things with the right intention, that actually you've got their back.
And you know what, Thom, it's ultimately your responsibility too. Like, if you want to be a leader, you have to take the responsibility for the whole team, because they are working under your authority. So it is you to blame. So you were right.
Exactly.
Because I've seen other people and say, no, it was him, and they report to the person. I mean, like, yeah, but you're allowed it.
but it reminds me of the of the joke. So there's a new CISO for this company, and he gets to meet his predecessor. And they meet in the bar outside, and they're having a drink, and he says, "Do you have any advice for me?" And he said, "Yes, I've got advice for you. In fact, what I've got, I've written 3 envelopes. I've got 3 envelopes, and I've put them in your desk, or my old desk, and put them in your desk. And every time there's an incident or a breach, open up one of the envelopes in turn. They're labeled 1, 2, and 3. So, okay, fantastic. Thank you. So 2 months later, there's a breach. And so the new CISO opens a drawer, finds envelope number 1, opens it up, and it says, blame your predecessor. So he goes in front of the board and says, all right, it's the predecessor's fault. It's all the stuff he put in, it's totally all his fault. Like, okay, make sure it doesn't happen again. A couple of months later, there is another breach. And he said, oh my God, again, I've got another envelope. Opens envelope 2, and it says, blame your team. And he says, well, goes to the board. He says, well, it's not going to happen again. But, this time it was the team. They just weren't trained properly. I'm still dealing with a lot of new people. It's okay, make sure it doesn't happen again. A few months later, there's a 3rd incident, and he's starting to really panic now. He said, it's okay, I've got the 3rd envelope. Opens it up, and the note inside says, prepare 3 envelopes.
For the next guy. Because they're getting fired. Yeah, it's true.
There's only so much blaming you can do on someone else, right? It has a lifespan. It has a half-life, you could say.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I told you half an hour, and it's almost like, more like 40 minutes.
Oh, well, I'm sure you could edit out all of the rubbish I talked about.
Thank you so much, Thom. If people like to follow you, are you on LinkedIn, or how can they find you online?
So on LinkedIn, just search for my name, Thom Langford. That's THOM. And generally, you can generally just sort of Google or search for me as Thom Langford. I'm despite being in security, I'm not very good at keeping my name out of Google's mouth. So just search for me there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but I don't use it very much anymore. But it's all Thom Langford. And that should do it. And if there's more than one of me, I'm the bald one with the glasses and the beard.
Sounds good. Thom, thank you so much for your time. God bless you, and have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.